Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Now today's video is a very special one as I am going to share 3 scary Hmong fishing stories. I know a lot of you Hmong folks out there love fishing, especially in the summer like this. But be warned, you might encounter some strange things if you're unlucky enough to see them. But thank you to the viewers who submitted this story. If you would like to share your stories as well, please submit them to the email listed in the description below. And before we get started, remember to leave a like and subscribe. And without further ado, enjoy the video. This happened to me when I went fishing with my cousins in Minnesota. It wasn't a super small pond or big pond, but it was big enough where you could still find quiet spots if you knew where to go. At the time, I was still in high school. I think I was about 16 years old. My cousins were around the same age as me, and then there were some younger cousins too. It was one of those family fishing trips where the adults say that they're only going for a few hours, but everyone knows that we're not coming back until late. My dad, my uncle, and a few of the older guys had been talking about that lake for a while because somebody they knew had been catching walleyes there from the shore. Most of us didn't have boats, so any place where you could catch good fish from the bank was a big deal. We packed coolers, chairs, all the baits, and all the usual stuff. We got there before sunset. It was still bright outside, and there were a couple of other families spread out along the shore. The spot we chose was near a bend where the shoreline curved in a little bit. Behind us was a line of trees, and past the trees was a gravel road where we parked. In front of us was open water, and to the left there was a small wooden dock, but it looked old, so nobody really used it except to stand on it for a minute. Nothing felt wrong when we first got there. It was actually a pretty nice evening. The sky was clear and the lake looked calm. The kids were running around and the adults were setting up the lines. My aunties were talking about the coolers, and it felt like any other summer fishing trip. The first thing that was kind of weird happened a little bit before it even got dark. My little cousin, who was maybe 7 or 8 years old, kept on looking at the old dock. She wasn't scared or anything, she just kept on staring over there while holding her little fishing pole. I asked her what she was looking at, and she said that there was a kid standing on the dock. I looked over, and I didn't see anyone. I told her it was probably just one of the other kids from another family, and she said no, because this kid was wet. I laughed and told her that of course a kid by the lake might be wet, but she gave me this serious look and said that, no, his whole shirt is stuck to him. I looked again, but the dock was empty. I could see the whole thing from where I was sitting. There was nowhere for a kid to hide unless he jumped into the water, and we would have heard that. I didn't think of it that much at the time. Kids say things, and they see things in shadows, plus the sun was low, so the light was kind of reflecting off the water and making everything look a little weird. After that, the evening went on like normal. We caught a few small fish, and my uncle caught one decent walleye, and everybody got excited. Then the sun went down. The other people started leaving one by one, and by the time it got really dark, it was just our family left. That was when the lake began to change. I don't know how to explain it, but if you fish a lot, you know that the water always has some kind of sound. Even when it is calm, there is still a little movement. There are little waves hitting the rocks, bugs touching the surface, fish splashing far away, or you would hear the wind moving through the weeds. The bugs were still around us, even though we sprayed bug repellent. But even then, it seemed like the bugs weren't making as much noise. The water in front of us looked flat and black. My dad told us to not go near the water unless we had a light. That was normal for him. He always said that because he didn't want any of us slipping on the rocks. Me and one of my cousins were sitting by our rods, watching the glow sticks on the tips. We had 2 lanterns near us and another one near the adults. The younger kids had already fallen asleep in the van. After a while, my line started moving strange. It wasn't like a fish biting. The tip of the rod bent down slowly, stayed there, and then it came back up. I picked it up and felt a steady pull, like my hook had gotten something or gotten caught on the weeds and the current was moving it. I reeled in slowly. It felt heavy, but not alive. I thought maybe I had snagged a branch. My cousin kept telling me to not lose my hook because I had already lost a few that day. As I reeled, the line started moving sideways. Not away from me, but sideways, toward the old dock. I told my cousin, "Hey, shine that light over there." He pointed his flashlight at the water, and at first we saw nothing. Then we saw my fishing line cutting across the water, still tight like something was dragging it under the water toward the dock. My cousin said, "What the heck?" I gave the rod a hard pull, and it came loose all at once. I almost fell backward. When I reeled in, my hook was gone. The line was not snapped. It looked cleanly cut. I was annoyed because I thought maybe it rubbed on a rock or something sharp under the water. I tied on another hook and cast it out again, but this time I cast it away from the dock. A few minutes later, my little cousin woke up crying inside the van. My auntie went to go check on her. We could hear her asking what was wrong. My little cousin kept on saying that the wet boy is cold, the wet boy is cold. Everybody got quiet after that. My uncle told her that she was dreaming. He gave her water and told her to go back to sleep. My auntie looked a little scared, but she didn't say anything. Hmong parents are like that sometimes. They don't want to scare the kids more by acting scared themselves. Maybe 20 minutes passed after that, and we were all trying to act normal again. My dad even made a joke about how the fish were scared because we were too loud. Then, one of the rods that nobody was holding started sliding toward the water. It was one of my uncle's rods. He had propped it up between two rocks. It did not jerk like a fish hit it. It just slid forward slowly, like someone was pulling it by the line. My uncle grabbed it before it went in. He set the hook and started reeling. At first he laughed and said, "This one is big." But then his face changed. The rod bent almost all the way down. He pulled back hard, but whatever was on the other end did not move like a fish. It did not run. It did not shake. It just stayed there, heavy. My dad came over and held the line with a towel so they could both pull. Then my uncle said that he felt something pulling back. Not the line, the pole itself. He said it felt like someone had grabbed the hook and was walking backward with it. That sounded stupid to me at the time, but that was how he explained it. They pulled for maybe 10 seconds, and then, all of a sudden, the water near the old dock made a splash. Not a big splash, just enough that we all turned to look. There was a shape in the water. It was not a whole person. I don't want to say that I saw a full body because I didn't. What I saw looked like the top of someone's head and maybe one shoulder, just a little bit above the surface near the dock. The head was dark and the hair looked flat against it, like it was soaked. It was facing away from us at first. Then it turned slightly. My uncle let go of the rod. The pole hit the rocks and the line snapped right away. Nobody yelled and nobody ran. We all just stood there, looking at the spot where the shape had been. The water was flat again. My dad was the first one to talk. He said for all of us to pack up. Nobody argued. We started packing fast, but not in a crazy way. The adults were trying to act like everything was fine because the kids were there. My dad told me to grab the lanterns, my uncle told my cousins to pick up the chairs, and my aunties woke up the kids and put them in the vehicles. While I was folding one of the chairs, I heard something behind me, closer to the dock. It sounded like a child coughing. I froze for a second. Then I heard it again. It was not loud. It was weak, like someone had water in their throat. I looked at my cousin because I thought that maybe he heard it too. He was staring toward the dog with his mouth open, so I knew that I wasn't the only one. We didn't say anything. We just grabbed the rest of the stuff and walked to the van. On the way home, nobody talked for a while. The younger kids were asleep, and my dad and uncle were whispering in the front, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. I remember my little cousin woke up once and asked if the boy came with us. Her brother told her to stop talking about that and to go back to sleep. The next day, I asked my dad what he thought we saw. He told me to not worry about it. He said that some lakes have things that people don't understand, and if something tells you to leave, then you leave. I asked him who told us to leave, and he said nobody had to say it. A couple of months later, my uncle was able to find out about what had happened. He asked around and heard that years before, a kid had drowned somewhere around that side of the lake during a family outing. But maybe that was just people talking, and maybe my little cousin heard something before. Maybe what we saw was a log or an animal or something. But to this day, we all still know what we heard by that dog. And I know that my cousin also heard it as well. After that night, I still go fishing with my family, but I never liked fishing after dark now. Even now, when I see a dock sitting empty at night, I think about that wet kid my cousin said that she saw, and I always look away. It was a few years ago that I had this experience while fishing on a lake. I won't name the lake because it's actually a pretty decently popular place, and I don't want a lot of Hmong people to go there and steal my fishing spot. But now that I think about it, after my experience, I think I'm okay if people take this fishing spot. Now, I'm not a superstitious person. I grew up hearing stories from elders and relatives, and I was always the type to think that there was a normal explanation for everything. Even with this story, a part of me still tries to explain it. But there are parts that I still can't make sense of. My friend and I went out in his small boat. It wasn't anything fancy, just a regular fishing boat that had an old motor, 2 seats, a trolling motor. He even had a small fish finder and a battery that always gave him problems. We were going to look for crappies because we had heard that they were biting near some deeper weeds after sunset. We got to the landing at around 7 p.m. There were still a few trucks there, but most people were coming in while we were going out. One older white guy at the dock joked with us and said, "You boys are going out when everybody else is going home." My friend laughed and said that was when the fish started biting. The weather was good at first. It was one of those summer nights where the air was warm, but the lake breeze made it cooler once you got away from the shore. The water was calm enough that the boat barely rocked, and for a while, it felt really peaceful. We fished the first spot and caught nothing. Then we moved to another spot near a narrow part of the lake where there were cattails on one side and a small wooded point on the other. My friend said that the depth dropped off pretty good there, and the fish finder was showing fish about 10 to 12 feet down. That was when we started catching them. At first, it was fun. It was very fun. Every few minutes, one of us would get a bite. They were not huge fish, but they were decent enough to keep us out there. We had a small cooler with a few fish in it, and my friend kept on saying that we should give it 30 more minutes. Of course, every time he would say that, one of us would catch another one, so we stayed a little bit longer. By now, it was pretty dark and the lake was empty, at least from what we could see. There were no boats near us, no voices, and nothing. That was when I noticed the fish finder acting strange. The screen showed a thick mark underneath us, almost like the bottom had showed up. My friend tapped the screen and said that it was probably reading weeds or bait fish. I don't know much about fish finders, so I believed in him. Then it happened again. The depth went from 14 feet to 7 feet, then back to 14. The boat was not moving. We were anchored, so I asked him how the depth could change like that. He said that maybe a big school of fish was just passing under us, but even he sounded like he didn't believe in that. A few minutes later, something bumped the bottom of the boat. It was not hard, just a hollow tap against the boat. I looked at my friend, and he looked at me. He said that it was probably a carp or a turtle, and I said that, yeah, maybe it was. Then it tapped again, but this time it was closer to my side. We both sat still for a second. I was holding my rod, but I forgot that I was even fishing. My friend turned on his headlamp and shined it around the boat. The water was black, and all we could see were little bugs flying in front of the light. He laughed a little and said, "Man, this lake is creepy when nobody else is out here." I said, "Let's just fish for 10 more minutes and then we can go." We kept on fishing, but the mood changed. Before that, we were talking and joking. After the tapping and bumping, we both got quiet. Every small sound felt louder. The anchor rope, rubbing against the boat, sounded like someone scratching. The minnows in the bucket that we had sounded like something was moving behind us. Then we heard a voice. It came from the wooded point, maybe 50 yards away. It sounded like a woman saying something, but we could not make out the words. It was not a scream or crying, it just sounded more like someone talking to themselves. My friend turned off his headlamp right away. I asked him why he turned it off, and he whispered if he wanted to see if there was any light over there. There was nothing. No flashlight, no cabin, no campfires, and nobody by the shore. We waited, and then we heard it again. This time, it sounded closer to the water than the trees. It was still a woman's voice, but still too low to understand. I told myself that it could be sound carrying from across the lake. Anybody who fishes knows that sound travels a little weird over water. A person could be on the other side of the lake, and it might sound close, so that's what I told myself. My friend said that there was no one over there. I asked him how he knew, and he said that that point was public land with no houses, and we had passed it earlier while it was still light. There was no trail and no campsite there, just trees, rocks, and cattails. Right after he said that, my bobber went down. It didn't sink like a fish took it. It slowly lowered under the water like something pulled it straight down. I lifted my rod and felt weight. Not a fish fighting, just weight. I started reeling, and whatever it was came up slowly. My friend grabbed the net, even though we both knew it did not feel like a fish. When my line got close to the boat, my hook came out of the water. There was a strip of cloth on it. It was dark, maybe blue or black. It looked old and slimy, like it had been in the water for a long time. It was wrapped around the hook 2 or 3 times. I said that it's just garbage, and my friend told me to throw it back. I don't know why, but a part of me didn't want to touch it, so I used my pliers and shook it off into the water. The cloth floated for a second, and then it sank. That was when the voice came again. This time, it sounded like it was coming from right beside the boat. My whole body went cold. I could not understand what was said, but I knew it was a voice. It wasn't the wind or a bird or an animal, but it sounded like a voice. My friend said that we were leaving. He didn't yell and he didn't panic. He just said it in a normal voice, but I could tell that he was scared. He pulled up the anchor while I started putting the rods away. As he pulled the rope, he stopped and looked down at his hands. I asked what was wrong. He said the rope felt like it was caught. He pulled harder. The front of the boat dipped a little, and then the rope came loose all at once and he fell backward into the seat. The anchor came up covered in weeds. Mixed in weeds were long strands of hair. At least, that's what it looked like. He threw the anchor into the boat and started the motor. It took 3 pulls before it started, which was normal for that old motor. But man, those 3 pulls felt like forever. As soon as it started, he turned us toward the landing. We did not go full speed because it was dark and there were shallow spots, but he went faster than we came in. I kept looking behind us. I don't know what I expected to see, but I just had this feeling that something was following the boat. Halfway back, my friend slowed down because there was a no-wake area near the landing. As soon as the boat slowed, we both heard something in the water behind us. It sounded like someone exhaling. Not splashing or fish jumping, but more like a person coming up for air. I turned around and saw a ring of water spreading out maybe 20 feet behind the boat. In the middle of it, the water was moving like something had just gone under. My friend saw it too. He didn't say anything. He just pulled the throttle forward and ignored the no-wake sign until we got close to the dock. When we got to the landing, there was one truck still parked there besides ours. The strange thing was that there was no trailer attached to it. It was just a truck parked by itself with nobody inside. My friend said that maybe someone was night fishing from the shore. While he was strapping the back, I noticed wet footprints on the dock. They were bare footprints. They started at the edge of the dock and went toward the parking lot, but they stopped halfway. I know docks get wet, and I know people swim and walk around barefoot, but this was almost midnight, and nobody else was there that we could see. I pointed them out to my friend. He looked once and said, "Don't look at that. Just get in the truck." On the drive home, he told me that his grandma used to say to not fish certain parts of the lakes at night because some spirits stay near the water. He said he never believed it before. I asked him if he believed it now, and he said that he didn't know. A couple of days later, he went back during the day because he really wanted to fish. Everything looked normal. No cloth and no footprints and no sign of anything else. But the truck that we saw that night bothered him. He asked around near the bait shop, and one guy said that the landing was usually locked after 10 during that part of the season. I don't know if that was true or not. Maybe the gates were open, and maybe someone had permission to be there, or we just didn't notice anything. All I know was that we were not brave about it after that. We stopped fishing at that lake at night. We went back again during the day, but it felt different. Nothing happened, but I kept looking at that wooded point and thinking about that voice beside the boat. The worst part is that I don't even know what it said. And sometimes I think maybe I don't want to know. So if any of you have gone to this place, you can feel free to take my fishing spot. I don't go fishing as much as the guys in my family, but I grew up around fishing. My dad fished, my uncles fished, my brothers fished, and whenever there was a free weekend in the summer, somebody was always asking who wanted to go to the lake. This story happened when I was already an adult. I was married by then, and my husband liked fishing way more than I did. I would go with him because sometimes I liked sitting by the water and getting out of the house. I wasn't there to catch fish every time, but sometimes I just brought snacks, a blanket, and sat there on my phone. This happened at a smaller lake not too far from the Twin Cities. It was just a normal lake with a fishing pier, a small parking lot, and some woods around one side. During the day, families went there all the time. At night, though, it felt different. My husband liked going there after work because it was close enough that we could fish for a couple hours before going home. That night, we got there maybe a little bit after work. It was already getting dark, but there were still two other people at the pier. One was an older man, and the other looked like a teenager or young guy fishing by himself. We set up near the end of the pier. My husband used minnows. I just sat on the bench and watched him. There was a street light near the parking lot, but it did not reach all the way to the pier. We had a small lantern and a flashlight. The older man left first. He packed his bucket and chair and walked back to his car. The young guy stayed for a little longer. I remember him because he had a gray hoodie on and he always kept his hoodie up even though it wasn't that cold. At one point, I looked away to answer a text, and when I looked back up, the young guy was gone. His spot was empty. I did not hear him leave, and I was also not paying attention. I just figured that he packed quietly and walked back. My husband said that the fish were starting to bite, so of course he wanted to stay. I was fine with it at first. It was quiet and the weather was nice. Maybe 30 minutes later, I heard someone walking on the pier behind us. Wooden piers have a certain sound when people walk on them. You can hear the boards bend a little, and it's not loud, but it's easy to recognize. I turned around, expecting to see the young guy coming back or someone else walking out to fish, but nobody was there. I thought maybe it was the pier shifting or the water moving underneath it. I didn't think much of it at the time. Then, it happened again. This time, it sounded like someone took 3 steps and stopped. I looked behind us again and nothing. I told my husband, I think someone is walking behind us. He looked back and said that there was nobody there. He told me it was probably the boards creaking because the temperature was changing. That made sense, so I accepted it. A few minutes later, his bobber started moving. It drifted sideways, then went under. He set the hook and started reeling. He said that it felt like a small fish or something else because it was pulling kind of weird. Then the line went slack. When he reeled in, the hook was still there, but the minnow was gone. That was normal. Fish steal bait all the time. He baited it again and casted it out. Then I heard someone whisper behind me. It was not clear. It sounded like a person whispering under their breath. I turned so fast that my neck hurt. There was still nobody there. My husband saw my face and asked what was wrong. I told him that I heard someone. He looked toward the parking lot and said that maybe someone was by the cars. I looked toward the parking lot too, and there were only 2 vehicles there. Our car and one other car parked under the light. I assumed it belonged to the young guy in the hoodie, but I didn't see anyone inside it. After a while, I started to feel uncomfortable. I told my husband that maybe we should just go. He said, okay, just a few more casts. I know some people will say that that is stupid, but it was not like we saw a ghost standing in front of us. We were just hearing weird sounds, and a part of us still thought that maybe it was normal. That's how these things happen. You don't jump to the scariest answer right away. I sat closer to him and tried not to look behind us. The lake was very still. There were no waves except little ones hitting the pier. Across the lake, I could see a few house lights, but they were far away. Then, something splashed under the pier. Not beside it, but under it. My husband looked down between the boards. I told him not to put his face down there. He said that maybe a fish hit the pier, but then we heard it again, right under our feet, splashing, and then a dragging sound. It sounded like something wet being pulled against the bottom of the wooden boards. I stood up and said, okay, we are leaving. This time, my husband did not argue. He started packing the rods, and I grabbed the lantern and tackle bag. While we were packing, the other car in the parking lot turned on. At least, that's what I thought at first. The headlights flashed on for maybe 2 seconds and then shut off. There was no engine sound, no door opening, nothing, just the lights. My husband saw it too. He said that maybe the guy was sleeping in his car and accidentally hit the lights. Again, that made sense. I wanted it to make sense. We started walking back. The pier felt longer than usual. I know that sounds dramatic, but that's what it felt like. Every board we stepped on sounded too loud. I kept feeling like someone was walking behind us, matching our steps, but whenever I turned around, it was empty. When we got closer to the parking lot, I noticed something about the other car. The windows were fogged up from the inside, but there was nobody in the driver's seat. I stopped walking. My husband asked what I was doing. I nodded toward the car and whispered that I didn't see anyone inside. He told me to not stare, and we walked past it and went to our car. As he loaded the fishing rods into the trunk, I heard a tapping sound. It was coming from the other car. I looked over, even though I didn't want to. The sound came again. Tap, tap, tap. It sounded like someone tapping from inside the glass, but the car looked empty. My husband closed the trunk and said, "Get in." I got into the passenger seat and locked the door. He got in and started the car. As we pulled out, our headlights passed over the other car. For 1 second, I thought I saw someone sitting in the back seat. It looked like the young guy in the gray hoodie. His head was down, and his hood covered most of his face. I grabbed my husband's arm and told him that someone was inside the backseat of the car. He slowed down a little and looked through the mirror. Then he said, "No, there's nobody there." I turned around and looked back again. The car was empty. I did not sleep well that night. I kept waking up because I thought I heard footsteps in our apartment hallway. My husband said that he didn't hear anything, but he also did not sleep much. The next day, he tried to make me feel better by saying that maybe the guy had really been sleeping in his car and I just saw him for a second. I wanted to believe that. But about a week later, we went to my parents' house for dinner, and I told my mom about what happened. She was a little worried and asked which lake it was. I told her, and she went quiet for a little bit. Then she said that for us to not stay by the water too late at night, especially when there is only one other person there and we don't know if that person is alive or not. I laughed because I thought she was trying to scare me, but she was serious. She said that elders used to say that spirits near water can appear as someone ordinary, like a fisherman, a child, or a person. Sometimes they want you to notice them. Sometimes they want you to follow them into the water. And sometimes they are stuck there and they need someone to take their place. I asked her if she thought the young guy was dead. She said that she did not know and that it was possible it was a spirit. Then she told me to not talk about it too much. A few months later, my husband went back to that lake during the daytime with one of his friends. I did not go. He said that everything looked normal, but the fishing pier had one board near the end that had been replaced recently. He asked his friend there what happened, and his friend said that some boards had been damaged underneath, probably from ice or water. Even now, I still think back to that time when we went fishing at that lake. I don't go there anymore, but I still think about that time when the headlights hit the car and the person in the hoodie was not looking at us. His head was down like he was asleep. We never go fishing out late at night now, and my husband goes fishing on the weekends only. He still fishes, but he doesn't ask me to go to that lake anymore. I don't know what happened there, and honestly, I don't want to know. And that was my experience. Thank you for listening. Wow, guys, I'm so glad that I'm not a fisherman. Firstly, because I just don't have the patience to wait for a fish to bite. And honestly, I'm a big mosquito magnet. So when people ask me to go fishing, they ask me because they know that I get bit by mosquitoes. And if I go, then I'm basically the sacrificial lamb to all these hundreds of hungry mosquitoes. That's why I don't go anymore. And you might be, saying, "Oh, why don't you just spray yourself with the, bug repellent?" Well, it doesn't work, man. It never works. I'll still get bit. And sometimes I'll get bit underneath my clothes. I don't even know how it happens, but it happens. Now, one thing I want to mention with the supernatural encounters near these bodies of water, from what I hear, and other people's experiences, some of these spirits there are spirits of people who have drowned. And a lot of the times they are stuck there and cannot reincarnate. So they have to, I guess, drown the next victim or kill the next victim to take their space, to take their place, so that way they can go and reincarnate into heaven. So if you are a big person that likes to go fishing or go near these bodies of water, I'd be very, very careful, because you don't want something to drag you into the depths and start drowning you, because they want to leave that spot. They're stuck there for all of eternity, and they always need somebody to take their spot. Now, moving forward, I also want to thank the viewers who sent this story. These stories have been in my back catalog for a while now, and there's still a lot more to go to. So if you submitted your stories recently and are expecting to hear it on this channel, you just gotta wait a little bit, because I have a lot of stories to go through. It might not show up in the next week or two, but hopefully soon I can get to reading everybody else's story. Another thing I also want to say is that I'm surprised people keep calling my voice AI, that my voice is AI generated. Is my voice really, does it sound like it's AI generated? Maybe it does to certain folks who just are brain dead and do not understand how it works, but I'll just take it as a compliment. English is my second language, so I guess my English is that good, but sometimes I still catch myself slipping, and I have a little bit of that Hmong accent, that Hmong accent. So, let me know in the comment section below if you guys think that I have an AI voice, because I don't think I do, and I do not like AI voice narration stories at all. They're just not fun to listen to, and I feel like it takes away from the whole experience. But I will say though, and if I'm going to be completely transparent and honest, I do not use real pictures for my pictures, guys. All right, I'd be in a lot of trouble if I use real pictures of real people's homes. So if you're looking at some photos, you're like, that doesn't even look like a house in St. Paul. I'm sorry, dude. Like, it's a picture that I generated, okay? That's the only thing that I use AI for, is just the thumbnails. Okay, and the pictures. I can't get a picture of a real person's house. I can't, take a screenshot of a Google Maps street view and then, use that, because that'd be basically like invasion of privacy. So some of you folks out there that just, I love you guys, I should be patient. There are just some folks out there that are a little special to think that I have an AI voice and that some of these pictures are super, super real. No, they're not. They're just like every other channel is doing. They're going to create their own thumbnails. And if you are against it, by all means, you are entitled to your opinion, but I cannot take pictures of people's houses, guys. I would look like a creep, and I'm not like that. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, remember to leave a like and subscribe. I really need my adult beverages, and YouTube's telling me that you also might enjoy this video on screen. And without further ado, I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.